Alrighty, I think these turned out really good. And I can't wait to put them on there and then do the other side. And then I'm going to put another, like maybe about a 2.5 to 2 inch binding around it so that it can stay together easier. Alrighty, let's see what we can do about turning this over and doing the other side and sewing it down.
Around. That's why I say, as far as I know, I'm the only human that ever got closer than any other human to this craft, while the alien mechanics were actually working on it. The tall whites didn't see any reason didn't see where it would be in their benefit to help them, for them to help us in that area. Other areas, however, like radios, they were all perfectly willing to help us with areas like radios, like all sorts of things, that where they're, so like they could put in and say, I'd like to buy a new replacement radio for my Scoutcraft, and have the Americans provide them with a new high-quality radio, you see? And where the Americans and the aliens had mutual agreements. One night, on several nights early on, when I was in my barracks and the American generals came through with the alien generals, I could hear them standing right outside the door, way closer than from here to that door, because it was a very small thing, maybe as close as from here to that first line of chairs, and they were talking with the aliens about projects that they could do jointly. The American generals wanted to pick a couple of Air Force officers, for which they were offering me as one of them. They could say, well, we could send him to college and make him an officer. I was an enlisted man at the time, and they wanted to put 2 of them on the deep spacecraft and send them down to the next stop and see what was down there and then come back and tell them. The alien generals didn't feel that was in there, that they thought that was a waste of time, okay? What they wanted was for the American officers and the alien generals to pick a planet, an Earth-like planet. They said there were several nearby, or around stars that were nearby, and for their version of nearby could be 10 light years, which were too cold for them to colonize. But from their point of view, would be just perfect for humans that weren't otherwise inhabited. But they described them as being similar to, say, Illinois or Wisconsin. The aliens liked it way warmer than we do, and their version was that they would handle the transport, the ships, and that would be in their hands. But once we got there, we'd be in charge of everything on the planet, and all they wanted was for us to build them a base that they could use on their planet, just like they have one here on Earth, and we could do anything we wanted with the rest of the planet. And then they felt that in the course of building that, what they were offering was that whenever our guys needed supplies, they would take them with them to the store, wherever it happened to be, you see. So if our guys needed more supplies, they could either bring them back here to the Earth to get the supplies, or to whatever planet was closest where you could get the appropriate building supplies. And they felt that in that process, humans would learn about their society and they would learn about ours. They thought that was a better deal than merely putting a couple guys on a spacecraft and telling them to go look at the store. And it showed how the aliens thought, namely that they would agree to anything provided they saw where they would benefit from it. Okay. Let's see. I'll take that one. Yeah.
Charles, I think under any set of other circumstances, this kind of material would be classified top secret only or something like that. In effect, you're being permitted to release this by virtue of no action against you. It seems like it's part of an acclimation program or part of it. Do you agree, or do you have any reasons why you think you were allowed to do this without any?
The committee that picked me had aliens on it and human generals on it, Air Force generals. And when you make an agreement with the aliens, you keep it, okay? The consequences of breaking an agreement with the aliens are enormous. When I say they live like 700 years, remember, even though it's been 40 years for us, That's peanuts for them. They live 700 years. If the American generals when they made an agreement with the generals, it wasn't for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It was an agreement period. And if they thought that the U.S. Air Force was breaking its agreements by, say, pressuring Charlie, the consequences would be enormous. And it has nothing to do with whether I'm a nice guy or not a nice guy, or whether they like me or didn't like me. It's when you make an agreement with the aliens, can you be trusted? And they didn't have to be long-suffering. Remember, as I describe in my books, each one of them carried those weapons up their sleeve. And if you like the teacher, if an American general were to come up to the teacher, she doesn't have to ask him questions. They wear that electronic communication equipment. They can tell what you're thinking. And if all she's got to do is go see if he did anything that broke the agreement. And if she finds anything in there, she can jerk the equalizer and have him on his knees. I knew a CIA guard once that was terrified of the teacher. He told me that he had been escorting her down the steps of the Capitol building one Sunday afternoon, and that she had been talking with U.S. senators, and she was disguised as a human. And he said because he wasn't familiar with the way they walked, as she was coming down the steps, she was wearing low heels, not high heels, but just, flats, that he thought she was going to trip and fall, because he wasn't used to the fact that how they walked up and down steps. He said without thinking, he reached out and grabbed her by the elbow to steady her, the way you would say a lady. And he said she damn near, pardon my language, she almost killed him. She jerked that thing, and before he knew it, she had him down on his knees, giving him the equivalent of 120,000 volts AC, saying, do you think we're fools? Do you think I'd come down these steps if I couldn't take care of myself? And by the time she finished with him, it was nothing but yes ma'am, no ma'am. So when I say that when you make an agreement with the aliens, you keep it, and the generals will do anything for technology transfer, well, here I am. Remember when I came off the ranges, in conclusion, I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't bring any pictures. I didn't bring any diaries. I didn't bring any blueprints. I was never part of anything. I was never shown anything classified. I was never given a briefing. I came off with just my memories, okay? And remember, the aliens, in conclusion, are not in favor of secrecy. It's only the generals that were in favor of secrecy. It was very common for the aliens to remark, the teacher and those people, to remark about how silly the secrecy was. They felt that if they dressed up to look like humans and behaved themselves, they ought to be able to go into Las Vegas and shop for pretty dresses just like anybody else. Okay? Yeah? That lady? Mm-hmm. The CIA guard, the regular dealers didn't know that. They just knew that the government was coming and they had to stand aside. The CIA guards that were there, and the dealers that were there, they weren't told much. They were just told that if these people come in, be nice to them. Okay. One dealer I was talking to, one of the CIA guards that I was talking to when he was dealing. And when he was dealing, and he was looking down like he didn't want anyone to know that he was talking to me, because he wasn't forbidden to talk to me. It's just that the CIA guys are always trying to pretend there's somebody else, and nothing stands out in the crowd faster than a general and a CIA guard trying to look like an ordinary human. They don't know how to do it. None of them have the faintest idea. And he was saying a group of your people, speaking to me, he was saying a group of your people came through last Saturday night. And I said, my people, And he said, yeah, the white people. And I said, well, where did they come from? And he said, none of us know anything. You're the only one that knows anything. Okay. All he knew was that he knew me. They all knew me by face, name, rank, serial number. They knew that when some people came in, if they issued the normal words, like I was the friend of the teacher or teacher's pet, then you're nice to them. But they weren't told any more than they had to be. Yeah. Yes, and you'll see in book 3 those 3 ladies that, handed me the book, or the head lady handed me the book in my barracks, and the same 3 ladies that had been wanting to play pool with, Bridges in book 2, and he couldn't take it. that was their point, was to go into the into the Senate. Remember, the Senate has that pool room in the basement where the senators take bribes. I know they call it something else. They say, let's bet on this pool game, and then guess what? The senator wins, so you hand him money, right? And say, oh, it was just a pool game, right? So, well, that's where they were headed for, you see, to talk to the senators over the pool table. From their point of view, they loved the game of pool. It's how you drive a gravity-powered spacecraft, is by playing pool with the stars. And, that's a wonderful place to go talk to senators. I don't want to run too long, so I'll take these questions here, and then I'll call it a day. I'll take each one of you that has your hands, and then I'll call it a day, okay? Let's see, I'll start with the lady in the back. Okay. I can only guess, but you'll notice that in my books I clearly described their technology where they could read my mind and tell what I was thinking and place thoughts in it, as long as they were simple thoughts. And I see the CIA has been working on that ever since 1954. So that's as much as I know. The lady in the back, and. Do I think it may be possible that there may be more than one version of human? I saw no evidence that they travel in time, okay? Now, my feeling is that because meteors blast DNA material all over this solar system and the ones next to it, and vice versa, my feeling is that if you go out and look at life on nearby planets, that it'll look like us. One night when I asked the teacher, as I described in book 3, what life on other planets looked like, or how humans compared, she said that the humans were unique in our ability to play with animals. She said that on the other planets where they had seen intelligent life, they were all plant eaters. She said she was a plant eater. We're the only ones that go out and play with animals, that keep pets. She said that was really unique. Her example was that I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. I know how to milk cows, ride horses, play with dogs. All those animals could kill me, but I feel comfortable around them because I first decide how is that animal thinking. And she's pointed out how unique that was, since humans are more intelligent than those animals, and most intelligent creatures don't want to do that. They don't want to pretend or decide how a less intelligent animal is thinking. So she said on most planets, the intelligent creatures began by killing off all the animals because they were plant eaters. Who needs them, right? And she thought that was really unusual, that I was willing to just go make friends with anybody's dog and play with them and teach them to roll over and feed them and pat them on the head, And the implication was that those other intelligent forms of life didn't differ too much from either us humans or her as a tall white. The guy in the back?
What about theologically, the fall and sin, okay? Because sin entered into our world, and this is probably like more of a evolution question, but would you say that they have moral depravity like humans do?
They understood tit for tat. The teacher's example was that if they didn't hurt me, why would I want to hurt them? If they didn't stand in my way, then why would I be afraid of them? They understood that if I was nice to them, they would be nice to me, and vice versa. You see in book 1 in the chapter entitled, Is It for Nothing? The day I went out in the sagebrush at Range 1 and rescued the teacher's daughter who was lost in the sagebrush, and then when I saw that she wasn't human, became hysterical and vomited my guts out in the sagebrush and so on, and got back to the Range 1 weather shack and locked the door and just tried to get back to normal and couldn't. You see, from their point of view, thank heaven Charlie was here, they needed to reward me. They understood, I did something nice for you, they'll do something nice back. That was as much religion as that was as close to religion as we were able to talk about. And other than that, I'd have to speculate. Okay. How about you? Okay.
John, have you seen anything that will interpret as art? That they have artists?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They loved, you see in book 1, my paint by number set. I was so proud. I know Van Gogh is turning over in his grave for me to call that art. they took that from me, and it was gone for months. Before they took that to another planet and showed it to somebody before they brought it back to me. They thought that was fine art. You see that's in book 1. When you look in their Scoutcraft hangar that's in the Arroyo, northwest of Range 4, the day I was in there and I yellowed out before opening the door to the inner hangar, on the walls they had their writing, which looks like Egyptian hieroglyphs if a guy didn't know better, and it's pink against white, okay? And I'm not sure how much of it was actually writing and how much might have just been artistic design. One night the teacher showed me her little girl was wearing the normal suit, but the teacher had sewn a frill or a ruffle around the middle, the way a human mother would for her little girl, and the teacher was very proud of it, The teacher used to make fun of the American generals because she used to say, well, they're all old men, and the generals, for the commissary up on the mountain, would just go out and get like the Sears catalog or the Montgomery Ward's catalog, and then they would just pick all the medical clothing, the white clothing that nurses and doctors would wear, and that's all that was in the commissary, And she used to make fun of the American generals for being old men without any fashion sense, One of the discussions I used to have with them, as I describe in my books, was, how much does a pretty dress cost in Las Vegas? And I decided that if they went into the Sands and they won $100 playing blackjack, which was peanuts for them because their eyes are better than ours and all the cards look different, then they could go across the street to a shopping center that was open till midnight and have a nice selection of dresses that she and the other women could buy. And I'm certain they did that. One of my friends, his wife worked in that shopping center, and she used to tell the funniest true story about how at 11 o'clock at night this group of ladies came in, and one stood in front of her and wouldn't let her do anything, while the other two went off and looked at dresses. And in their own words, she said it looked like they'd never seen a dress before. It was the first time they'd gone shopping, And so, yeah, they like art and music just like we do. I'll take the lady with the long hair, okay?
Yeah, I moved back to Madison, Wisconsin. I lived there for 3 years. I just moved back to San Diego. And my experience was very, very strange as far as state government to defer a lot to University of Wisconsin. And we know that it's now the leading biotechnical research center in the country. And I have a feeling that there's a lot more involvement with outside participants. And I think Madison has a large number now.
Yes. The man in the blue shirt, yeah?
I was just curious if they believe, if they think about what happens after they die, do they believe in reincarnation or?
I don't know, but they clearly love their parents and their children. And, that is one of the, like when my father died, I'm Roman Catholic, it was very comforting to me to be able to go and pray, knowing that his soul was still alive and in heaven somewhere, you see. I presume they're the same way, but I can only guess. Any question in the back?
Do you have any ongoing relationships with any of the whites today?
No, but that's their choice. See, if I were out like in the desert, or if I were out like in Mount Charleston, or Frump Valley, because those were all places I saw them, up in Wheeler Pass. So they came, after they've come across, 50, 100 light years of space, they're not going to be confined to 36 acres of rock out in the mountains. They're going to go wherever they want. And if I were to come across one, I would still be living by the same agreement. Namely, if I saw one, I would just stop and where I was and stand quietly with my arms at my side and let them come as close as they wanted, or leave. I wouldn't pursue. And if they came too close, then I would back away and expect them to not pursue, to just stay where they were. But I would still live by that same agreement.
But they protect you right now, right? I mean, they protect you right now. That's why you can talk. They know what you're doing all the time. Like being monitored, being recorded.
I don't feel monitored or protected.
Right.
Yeah, but once they made that agreement with the U.S. Air Force.
So that, but they know that nothing's happening, or how else would they know?
Well, in order for me to say anything, I'd have to speculate, but I don't feel monitored, or I don't feel protected. I just feel like a guy, I can just go my way and do my thing, But then, how would I know, right? If you're good enough at it. I'm very religious. I have my 2 guardian angels, like everyone, and I pray to God, and as long as He sees fit to protect me, I am, and if He doesn't, I won't, you know. Other than that, all I can say is I just have to be the person God made, you know. I am what I am, and that's all that I am, yeah. Any more questions? I know I'm way over on my time, and, okay. Was that a question back there?
Yeah, several months ago in Nephi Journal,
Mm-hmm.
story, and you might be aware of it, of a woman who was blind at a university had a general show up,
Mm-hmm.
a woman,
Mm-hmm.
who kind of the description is the same,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much as the Paul White was saying,
Mm-hmm.
and actually had this woman living with a blind woman
Mm-hmm.
at the university for a while.
The tall whites were, as I describe in Book 1, the tall whites were using their electronic equipment, were perfectly capable of putting images in your mind if you were relaxed and calm. Once you panicked, then all bets were off. And that story, I didn't see any reason to doubt that story. The tall whites themselves, when you went on board their scout craft, for example, there weren't any screens. There weren't any television screens. There weren't any computer screens. Their eyes are like those of a cat. And so I don't think, you know, when we look at a television set, we see the moving pictures. I don't believe that they see the moving picture because their vision is so good, you see. I believe that instead their communication equipment just puts the image directly in their mind and does it mind to mind. If they showed up without their communication equipment, and if none of their people had learned to speak English, which sometimes happened, especially in a number of episodes that I haven't published in my books, you were simply down to hand signals, you know. And because I'm late on time, I won't go into some of those. But as you see, I have my desk, my table, and my books, and I'm always happy to answer questions and talk afterwards. But if they didn't have their equipment, they weren't telepathic. If they didn't speak English and they didn't show up with their equipment, you were physically down to pointing and gestures. Any other questions?
My first sighting of a Bigfoot was in 1989 on October 1st. It was opening day of bow season. Me and my buddy Jeff, we were going out hunting in our little spot we have out in Walhalla. And it was about 4:30 in the morning. He come pick me up in his truck and stuff, and we went out and we got out to our spot where we were going to be hunting that morning. And we got out of the truck and got our bows and everything ready and got all our sprays and stuff that we were going to use and stuff and some bait to take to our tree stands. Well, to get to our tree stands, we had to go over this railroad track that runs east and west. It's kind of built up on like a big berm. It goes up in the air. It's about 6 feet up in the air from the flat ground where the rest of the forest is. And so we got our stuff and we started going towards the deer stands, and we got up to the railroad tracks. We were just getting ready to cross, and I happened to look towards the east, and I'm looking. It was a full moon out, really quiet, no sound in the woods, a little chilly. And I look and I see something coming up on top of the railroad tracks there. I told my buddy Jeff, I go, "Hey, what is that?" He goes, "I don't know. Is that another hunter?" Because we didn't see nobody come in through this 2-track that we came through, so we didn't know if there was somebody else hunting in there. And it finally got up to the top, and I'm looking, and I'm going, "That ain't no guy, man." I go, "That's way too big to be a man." My buddy's going, he goes, "What is it?" He goes, "I don't know. Neither one of us had binoculars, so we could see it." And it started coming closer to us because I could see the outline of it really good. And the thing was huge, man. I'm talking 4x8 piece of plywood. This thing was at least 5 foot at the shoulders. Huge. 10 feet tall at least. Had to have been at least 10. It was almost even with the railroad track sign. So we're sitting there, and it stopped. And I told my buddy Jeff, I go, "Wait a minute, let me go down on the other side of the cul-de-sac here off the tracks and see what it does." So I walked down on the edge of the rocks there off the railroad tracks, and then the thing followed me down, and it stood there. I'm going, what is going on? What's this dude's problem? I don't know what it is. I can't wrap around my head what it is. So I come back up to where my buddy was still standing up on top of the railroad tracks, and the thing followed me back up. So my buddy, he goes, I'm going to get my flashlight out. And he had pretty power. He had one of those Meg flashlights, and he flashed it down there. And we couldn't really see it that well because the light just soaked in the thing. It was just pure black. But you could see the whole outline of it really good with the moon being behind it. So I go, Jeff, what should we do? I said, I should go back to the truck. He goes, I said, no, I'm going to the tree stand. That's what I told Jeff. So I started walking back down, and then the thing started coming closer to us again. And by this time, it's probably, I'm going to probably say 35 yards. Well, then we could see it pretty good. You could see the square chin, eyes sunk back in, flat head, didn't have a cone head, big shoulder, big hands, massive hands, tapered down towards the waist, legs were big calves. And then by that time, I didn't know what else to do. I was just still standing down there on the bottom, on the other side of the railroad tracks. My buddy standing there, and my buddy started crying, and I heard something weird sound, and my buddy's peeing himself, and I looked down at myself, and I even wetted myself, and I didn't even know what to do. I was like in shock. I couldn't move, so I finally snapped out of it, and I said, Jeff, we got to get to the tree stand. We can't make it back to the truck. And our tree stands were only like 40 yards away from the railroad tracks. So finally, my buddy, he snapped out of it. He goes, what are we going to do? Go back to the truck? I said, no, run to the tree stand. So we ran to the tree stands, got up there, and my tree stand was further back than my buddy Jeff's was. And there was no way in heck I could have made it to my tree stand because it was further back. So I went up his ladder stand with him. And we're both on his ladder stand, just sitting there shaking. He dropped his bow. I still had my bow. I was shaking like a leaf. And then we were looking around to see if we could see anything. So I didn't know if the thing was going to chase us or what was going on. And then all of a sudden we heard a big crash coming down through the swamp that was in front of us, which was facing, my buddy's tree stand was facing north. And we were looking to the east again. And that's where the big swamp was. And the thing came down into the big swamp, just breaking limbs and just making tons of noise, screaming, god-awful screams. And then it got quiet for a second, and then we heard another one, but it had a different pitch to it, like it was something completely different. And then all of a sudden the other one started up again, and then we heard like a big commotion going on, branches and trees snapping and stuff. And then all of a sudden we heard a big splash into the river, like something jumped into the river, and then it got all silent again. So by that time, it finally got daylight, and we're sitting there just shaking like we were freezing to death. And we sat up there till at least 8 o'clock. And then finally we got down, we got enough nerve to get down, and we ran back to his truck, and then we took off. My second one was November 2020. It was on the 7th. I shot a 10-point buck, and I was sitting in a ground blind at the time. And my deer took off. He ran off. I seen I hit it, made a good shot on him. And so I figured I'd give it a little bit of time because it was a good shot, but I wasn't quite sure. I was using a crossbow at the time. And it took off towards the north and went towards the west, towards Lake Michigan. So I hunt right next to the sand dunes there. And so I sat there for about 45 minutes. I called my son up to come help me track it and drag it out of there. So he finally shows up about an hour later, we started tracking my deer. And then we get down, I don't know, about about, I'd say 300 feet maybe in front of my tree stand. There's another 2-track that comes down through there. So we started walking that 2-track to the deer. I was tracking the blood, and he started going down the road, which was kind of strange to me. And then it cut back in and going up towards the sand dunes. And me and my son heard a big commotion again. And then I'm looking up on top of the dunes there, and I seen something big and black. I just seen the outline of it. And then I seen something rolling down the hill. And it made a big crash when it came to the bottom of this holler. And I couldn't see it no more because the holler went down from where I was standing. I couldn't see it no more because it dipped down. And then I seen the other thing still standing up on top of the hill. And it kind of turned to the south. I seen it turn, so it kind of rotated like a human would, but it was too big to be a human. And then I said, well, I started freaking out then because I started getting flashbacks from the first time I seen something. So I took my son. I said, well, we'll go back to the house and we'll sit for a couple hours and we'll come back and track it. So we waited, and my son, he had to go to work, so I went back out and I started tracking this thing again, my deer. And I got up on top of the dunes where it came, and I seen where the deer was laying because there was a good section of blood there. And then I found a leg. So I said, okay, what's going on here? And I didn't see no coyotes that day. And it wasn't a coyote attack anyways. You could tell it was just like ripped right off. So I walked another about 70 yards, and I found another leg. And I said, I'm done. I turned around, I went back to my car, and that was it. So that was my second little encounter I had. The third one I had was me and my son were swimming in the river, in the Branch River. And my son was down there splashing around in the river and stuff, and I was sitting up by the fire because it was kind of a cooler day. So I had to get warmed up a little bit. And then I seen a shadow on the other side of the bank just kind of flashed like it was running through, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I yelled at my son. I said, hey, man, get out of there. I think I just seen a black bear. So he got up out of the river, and he goes, are you sure? I said, I don't know what it was. So we waited for about 20 minutes to see if we'd see it again, but we didn't see nothing. So we cooked up some hot dogs and stuff on the fire there, and then about an hour later, we went back into the river again. We were both in the river at this time. And then I looked over to the right again, and then I seen this thing moving up the ridge again. All I seen was the shadow of this thing, but you could see the outline of the legs. So I know it had 2 legs. And I mean, they were big legs. I couldn't see the rest of it because all the foliage that was on the trees. And being down in the river, the bank sat up quite high. So, and that was like my third sighting. I seen something that had 2 legs and it was big. I was in my tree stand one time, and it was still dark out. I was waiting for daylight. I usually get out there about an hour before daylight anyways to let everything calm down and get quiet again from me making noise going in there. And I'm sitting there, and I got my harness on and everything. I got that all hooked up, and I sat down in the tree stand there, and about 20 minutes later, I feel this something slap the side of my tree stand, the platform. I mean, it gave it a pretty good poke where it shook my legs even. I have no idea what that could have been. I don't know if it was a bird, an owl hitting it or something. I didn't hear nothing flying off like wings or anything. But when it hit it, I could have swore I heard something walking off. I'm not sure on that because it was a little drizzly and it was raining out a little bit, so it was a little loud. But I could have swore I heard something walking away from my tree stand. That's about it.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Somebody got me backwards and double time.
Yeah, it's over.